What's up, y'all? LTJ Reeks is here, and if you're not throwing lights, you're not acting right. I've got Elimination Onyx here tonight. I've got me a little bit of coffee. It is 6:30 p.m. in Austin, Texas right now, and I'm drinking coffee because I just got back from Houston, doing naked reading people. I'm sorry, naked people reading. So that was interesting. And now I'm back here, back in Austin. And I'm getting to interview this amazing person, amazing human being, someone that I last got to see at IML. I got the privilege and honor of sitting on a panel with you, which was pretty rad. Going from, me going from, I just made my 3 year anniversary in the leather community August 1st. Only 3 years. And the amount of work that's been done and the accomplishments, and to what I felt like have kind of like this cherry on top of the work when I was on the IML panel, because it was like, here we are a year later. Okay, so like the work is recognized. You know what I'm saying? So
hmm
it was really cool. So where are you right now? Tell everybody.
So, first off, I want to say thank you for allowing me to join you today. For those who are watching this, the backgrounds were not planned. We happened to jump on this call together, and it was like I said, "Well, yo, like why are we looking alike?" So that's recognized that that was not planned. So, LTV said that we think alike, and therefore great humans, great minds come together. So this conversation is all going to be about great minds. I too have, well, I have tea. I've had my coffee because it's 7:30 here, so I am joining. That again, family was not prepared, was not planned. We
Oh,
just kind of sunk into all of this. And so before I share about me, let me just correct something real quick about you, Glenn Charity. You said 3 years. I remember you. I remember getting you dressed, getting you ready at IML. And I told you back then you were a superstar. I don't know if you remember, but I told you back then that you were a superstar. So 3 years, 10 years, 20 years, know that you are a superstar and you are loved. You on that panel because you have a story, a wonderful story to tell and deserving. So again, family,
thank you so much.
that's all good. I just want to make sure we cleared that up because I was like, I wrote that down. I'm like, we're not gonna go too past into this interview and we don't recognize your wonderful gifts.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
but again, thank you for having me. I am currently in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. It is a cloudy day. It was sunny, rainy part of the weekend. Had an awesome weekend. I'm part of Onyx, one of the founding members of Onyx Deep South, and we had our weekend of activities. So yesterday we had a wonderful opportunity to bring community members together. We went and break bread, have conversation. And then, of course, with all us other wonderful folks, we go out to a wonderful bar and have fun. So last night, Onyx South brought the critters together, and so we had a plethora of critters, of different types, different bodies, different humans, different animals come together and build spaces. So, like you, I am in a moment of recovery, but I'm energized by being here with you now.
Oh, good. Yeah. I'm energized too. So we're good. Okay, so have you, when did you first get involved in the community? Have you always been in Wilton Manors, or did it start in another city?
So yeah, so the so no, it has not. I'm a transplant to Florida. I've been here roughly about 13 years now. My leather journey actually started in Baltimore, at the Baltimore Eagle. It is not the Eagle of today. The Eagle that I went to back in those days was truly the seedy place, where you could sometimes you find a little health department stickers on the door because those really debauchery things happen there. So it was way back in probably about 25 years ago. I would go to the Eagle. Back then leather wasn't always friendly to folks who look a little differently and folks who may not was willing to, I won't say, for lack of a better word, sell their soul to community. I'm a very, I don't give into what you say I have to. I don't give in to fit in. So leather became a little. I'm not a person who just stands around a bar and allows to be touched, to be manhandled, to be taken advantage of. So it got to be a little uncomfortable. It was fun, but it just wasn't. I didn't necessarily feel totally home. It was great to go, great to visit, but to stay just wasn't where I wanted to be in that part of my life as a young elimination, who was rowdy, who loved to have fun, who loved to dance, and was very much into I'm live, I'm black, and I'm proud, and see me, love me, but know who I am.
So you said you weren't ready then, correct?
Well, I so it was not that I wasn't ready. It was a comfort level. So if the bars back in 20 some years ago, 30 years ago were predominantly of Caucasian makeup. There were some of us who were black and brown were few and far between. And we often wasn't very cordial and nice sometimes to each other unless you had a clique. And so back during those days, again, I was a person who loved to party. I wasn't used to, yeah, often if you don't know someone, you may give them the side eye or the what's up, but you eventually become friendly, and it becomes a little bit easier to adapt. But when you're often the only one or the only two, it becomes a little hard to kind of deal. And so at that time, it just was more comfortable for me to go back to the community in which I knew of, where I could go in and see others like me. I was embedded in others like me. Um, I lived in Baltimore, so driving to DC, where the plethora of good gay clubs were there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every night of the week. You could go and you would be amongst your peers that were very much encouraging of your well being. So that it was just easier for me to do it that way, and walk away, for lack of a better word. So, shout out to the folks who I reconnected with, who were there 25 years ago, who stood there. I do recognize those folks. But I was never a person to stand on the wall. And so I had to be, I won't say center of attention, but I love to dance. I love to bring folks together, and peace was always key to me, and it's key to me now. And so walking in a space that felt heavy wasn't where I wanted to be at that time.
You say that things were more rigid 25 years ago. It clearly sounds that racism has been a barrier within the leather community that's had to be overcome as well. And being more inclusive of spaces for people of color. Here we are 25 years later. I mean, what has changed in your perspective?
Whoa. So I will say we've had some growth, and changing mindsets, because I think now the matter of getting in where we fit in is no longer the mindset. And now the mindset is now we're gonna fit in, and we're gonna make it ours regardless. I will share with you, and I will do this throughout the course of our interview, is speaking Ami Mize, because I know elimination only speaks for him, although we may have similar thoughts and journeys to our family members who are watching. But now I am in a situation where I don't care whether or not you want me in your space. If I want to be there, I choose to be there, and you can't walk away. You can't send me away. The 20 years ago, I mean, not that I went places to be addressed or be made to feel welcomed, but it was just easier to go somewhere where I knew the vibe was different. Now, I don't care whether or not I'm 3 feet from you and you don't speak. And so I think now our mindsets and our ability to be accepted and to be holding others accountable to accept us has changed. I also do believe that we have learned from our elders as well, because everyone's lived perception of racism depends on where you're from. We have some of our community members who grew up in very diverse populations. And so they may not have felt the heaviness that I felt, because it was natural to be around those individuals. I'll share with you, just in general, in my sixth grade year of high school, I had a young person. She told me I was the very first black person she ever sat beside in the classroom. So imagine that, moving that further 6 years, so and so many years later. So I do think racism still exists, because the world allows it to exist. So we cannot expect it not to exist in our world. It's just the hidden layers that are often found in our world. And folks put on a variety of masks within our world because they don't want to be seen and or called out. Because when they leave our world, they go home to their world. And if they grow, if you live in that life, no matter how far you try to hide it, when you come into our small circle, eventually it shows. And so I say, although we've made some successes in racism, and combating and overcoming it, it still exists. Sometimes it's just harder to identify because the masks and the layers are so deep.
I find that we have a lot of closet transphobia for sure, or anything different than cis gay white men, to be honest. I judged a contest, and there was a guy who ran who had a previous title, which was shocking to me. And he said that he was attracted to toxic masculinity. And I'm like, what? Like, why would and so we're in the interview, and I'm like, why would you say, like, help me out? He's like, oh, I was like, do you mean hyper masculine? He's like, yeah. I'm like, no, that's unacceptable. We are community leaders, and we need to know our word choices. And that is a particular statement to say that you're attracted to the toxic qualities of what makes somebody a male. And so he also said, yes, in public, I'm everybody, but my own preference when I'm back at home. I hate that more so than anything. Someone just posted the other day about, oh, I just want to like a man, and I'm bisexuals and trans. It's just kind of like, what is going on? Like, I cannot stand it when a gay man says like a vagina is gross or something like that. Because I'm like, people literally say your lifestyle is gross. So there's this like foolery going on, and it's frustrating. It's super frustrating. And then to be a person of color, where 20 years ago for me in Louisiana, a black man was a fetish for white people. A
Absolutely.
fetish. You know what I'm saying? Not something we talk about publicly, something we want privately. That's what I'm talking about. I didn't really, that was, and then, me being more racially ambiguous, like, there was literally this expectation that you are a black male, you're supposed to be hung, you are top, all this kind of stuff, ridiculous stuff, right? So I have been just blown away at the exposure of diversity that I've experienced being a part of the leather community. Where like there are things I know about that I did not know about 3 years ago, or that I thought about, and it's just very vast pool of knowledge. Um, and so it's been very interesting. But like I did not have this knowledge or this community a long time ago, and it feels very very, very, especially I know if you're in the South, it does feel very white gay man dominated, but also white gay man that can pass as straight.
Absolutely. Well,
So
the how the world has always ran, the big climate of the world itself and our small community has always been run by white, cis males, only because again that's what the world was. So it's only expected that it kind of trickled down. And I do agree. And again, that's part of the reason why I left 20 some years ago, because um I am not a fetish. B, you just don't have I'm not at the time, wasn't willing to just give my gifts to everyone, and it wasn't, and sometimes it was expected in certain bars where you could touch. And even, within it's been maybe 10 years or even recent, you may be in a place where a person could just feel the need to walk by you, grab your parts and think that it's okay. So, it's often interesting that mindset, but it's something that you said besides the running for the title. And I hope we can kind of go back to that, because I think that's a very important factor that we have to now look at as a community. But I listen to especially the gay community when they talk about fighting for gay rights and fighting for this and the right to marriage. And again, everybody's journey is everyone's journey. But I often question, well, you want to only fight for this specific area of rights, but you're forgetting about our siblings. And until your fight includes our siblings, I won't. I cannot. Because it's not fair that your focus is only about you and not about the rest of the world. And I think that until we hold folks accountable and say, yeah, gay rights is important, absolutely, because everybody deserves to live, everyone. But we can't just fight for you because it fits your journey What about our siblings that's right there walking with us, or our siblings that deserve to be married, our siblings that just deserve to exist? And I think that that's unfortunate where that conversation comes from that you mentioned, because folks walk with blinders on, because it's only me, my circle of folks that I hang with. And you often see that, especially in the area of social media, because they tell us that if you look at people's pictures, you never some it disheartens me when I see folks who say they're all about community, but their pictures and their everything they associate with only look like them. Well, how truly are you about community? And is it performative? Because if that's the case, then why do we not see a mixture of your friends included, or you do intentional inclusion of your friends in these posts? And those are very telltale. And I think we as a community now, we need to be those folks that we want, the change that we need to make happen, because we need to hold those people accountable.
I definitely don't need any closet. I don't need any closet racists, closet transphobes, closet, misogynists. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, if your true feelings are what your truly feelings are, why put yourself in the public sphere and advocate for something that ultimately, that if your closet was exposed, it's going to destroy the work you've done because it wasn't sincere work. And I just can't see how you can be insincere about what's going on right now. Look, I don't know how to make people understand that you can be attracted to any race, if you let yourself do that. Like, attraction is a lot learned more so than,
Right.
and that's a whole nother conversation. Having the American Leatherman title, let's talk a little bit about that. How many titles have you had?
Not many. I'm not a title chaser here. No, only two. So I was
Okay,
Mr.
well,
Ramrod.
two is fine. Two is fine.
The only two. I'm just picking with you. Only two. And I say that because after the first, I really worked hard as Mr. Ramrod at the time that we were the only leather bar in the city. And I really worked hard to build community, to make sure safe spaces for Black and brown folks and our trans siblings, and our women, as our women's leather women as well. Every human to be able to come to the bar. And we worked really hard during my year. I would do drag brunches, drag leather brunches to support our performers and our siblings. And I made it my effort to only do leather invasions where they were hosting our siblings of trans experience who were performers, and they had to be Black or brown. So I would not bring people to a bar if they didn't meet those two criteria. You had to have a performer who was of trans experience, and they had to be Black and brown. And I think that was important. And so the reason I said only two is because once I was done with that title, I thought I was done. I had not expected to do anything else. Um, it is a club title, but a bar title, but I wanted to make it again a citywide thing, and I was blessed to be able to do that. As a matter of fact, today is the anniversary where we actually fed the homeless in 2019. So it took it a little bit beyond the bar. So when thinking about what my next, or if there was ever going to be a next, I always knew I had to be something national or state, because I wanted to make a difference on a global stage or a global opportunity. Um, and Florida doesn't really have any state leather titles. And when American Brotherhood kind of came up, and I joked around with some of their former title holders and said maybe, maybe not. And it happened to be held in Wilton Manors this year. And I was like, well, it's right there, it's close to home. The focus is on activists and being active in the community and fighting injustices. And so it fit very well into one of the things that I was currently doing. And so when I surprised everyone, said, "I am running for another one," they're like, "What are you doing? Did you have enough headaches to last around?" Because as you mentioned, words matter. The abilities that you do and the word choices that you say and how you live your life matter. And for me, it just made it a little bit simple that this was the right fit for me at the time. And so American Leatherman 2025 is who I am. Happy to have had this got it one in February, and been blessed to have 6 months of trying to do the work. I've been very supportive of our siblings, and I'm with you. I very much speak out loud against transphobia, misogyny. I think that we all owe especially our sisters, our femme identified family members, a lot of grace and a lot of apologies, because a lot of the work where we are today it was those humans who held us down. And so I'm like you, when I hear someone talk negative about a femme-identified person, it's like, wait a minute, did you not realize when you were sick? Like a lot of folks who left, it was those humans who took care of us. It's those humans who see well sometimes that things that we don't see, especially as it comes to a person who is not of good quality, because they often are pushed down so far their lived experience, the light bulbs go out because their lived experience shows them these characteristics of and some of these people. And so I'm with you. Like that is one of the great things about American Brotherhood and American Leatherman family. It is a family that pulls together to ensure that we fight against all of those things because it has to. We have to continue to fight. Can you imagine? Only 40 years ago, when women didn't have ability to own banks and checks and black, color folk, black and brown folks were still looked at very differently. And in some places you go today, it's still the same. And so, and as you know, go back to what you mentioned about how far we've come. We've made little steps, but the problem is we haven't gotten there yet.
It was 23rd. It was about 2011 or 2012 when I was still in Louisiana. I was in grad school, Lafayette. I was working at a barbecue restaurant outside of Lafayette, Louisiana. Lafayette's about over 100,000 or so. Then Scott, this little town outside of it's really small, like just a couple of thousand. And there's a black lady. I was working cleaning up the restaurant one day. I was in grad school. This was like my part-time job, and I was like cleaning the restaurant, and this black lady walks into the restaurant, and she's just like moving slow, and she's like ducking and looking around, and I'm like, "Ma'am, can I help you?" And she was like, "Are black people allowed in here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, black people are allowed." And it shook me because I'm like, "Where did you come from? You came from somewhere." You came from somewhere where black people are not allowed to go into certain places. And we're talking 20. And so when I taught, my students were like, "Oh, we have black and white proms in Louisiana." The plan
It's it's
has
it's
institutionalizing the Ten Commandments in their classrooms, racist as can be, and it's
can
there.
you
It's
imagine?
still there. It's still
It's
there,
still there.
and
It's still
especially with the
there.
cultures going on, it's just like festering it up again. Um, it troubles me with religion a lot of times because especially with black people in religion because of because of the culture of slavery. Our religion was based from the point of oppression, and for the white person it was about overpowering or empowering themselves over other people. And it struggles to me often because I feel like when we give into religion the way that we were taught it, we're still allowing this kind of white power over our like spirituality in a way that we're supposed to suffer because we're black people. You get what I'm saying? That's what's been
So
passed down to us, is that we are supposed to suffer because we are colored. That's literally what their agenda is.
I definitely agree that religion is definitely a unique and hot topic depending on your lived experience, especially your journey. And I do agree with you that during that time, religion was used as a reason for why those folks behaved the way they did. But I will give you this thought, and again, and even to this day, those who don't fit the norm, those who fit the stereotype of the white typical angelical type behavior. You utilize religion and still as a weapon. So absolutely, why there should be no gay, why there should be no same gender loving, all of that kind of stuff. But I challenge you to think about this. The slaves when they were slaves when they were kidnapped from Africa. They always had some type of religion and believed in something. And so when forced to take on this religion, um, it wasn't not necessarily a moment of a burden. However, it was a moment of hope because you got to remember the Bible is translated, and so it's how in which you utilize it for your means. So if you utilize it for oppression, oh, absolutely. But if you utilize it for the hope of the better world, and if you think about why the AME Church was kind of started, and why a lot of slaves, although the America did them so horribly, and we know it is written down in many, many documents. It's written down in many, many books. the slave that the black folks still loved the country because it was the only country that they've been stolen from, it's the only country they possibly have known. But they believed in the hope. And why did they believe in the hope? Because of this quote unquote Bible, that they looked beyond it as a weapon, but realized it for a set of being able to be safe and finding the promised land. What when the prom whatever this promised land was, harping on those pieces and interpreting it in such a way. And I think we have to now, those who are still, I can definitely say I grew up in the church, but have not been as heavily involved as I was back growing up. But we can now take that and realize that the interpretation that John Smith is telling me is not the interpretation that I have to regurgitate to live off of, because the church gave us the body embodiment of civil rights. The church gave us the place of the meeting house. The church gave us the place of strength. And so we took those bits and pieces, those things that we could utilize, throw away the stuff that didn't, per se, of our harm, and made strength out of it. And I think that, if we can utilize that to continue to reach. Now, do I think that our salvation is in a church today? I can't say I can, because it has been convoluted, it has been diluted, it has changed from the purity of some of the preachers of yesterday. But I often tell people that we cannot lose the tradition that our forefathers you held on, because those nights when they were getting beaten, those nights where they didn't see anything else other than they held on to that hope of a promised land, of a better day. And it is that reason that I think, we are who we are today because of that.
That's phenomenal. No, you're absolutely right. That's great. That was beautiful. Yeah, thank you so much. So, elimination. I've got one more question for you. Are you ready? What is something
Sure.
in our community that you feel like we are not shedding any light on or enough light on?
Oh my gosh. That's I can't believe that's your last question, because we have so much more to talk about. But the I think what we're not shedding enough light on, you kind of, and I just bring it. I mean, I have so many different thoughts on this, but I'll bring it back to something that you mentioned earlier, so we can have that complete conversation about title holders and those who run for titles and want to be leaders as such. Because the crazy thing is, anybody can wake up at any given moment and decide, I want to be a leader, I want to run for a title. And I don't think that we are doing what could be done to vet these humans. You mentioned a situation that you ran into real time, but there's so many stories of folks who talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, or living a supportive lifestyle, and thus, but then when you watch their walk, they're nothing of what they say they are. They're very divisive. They're very, if it's not my way, it doesn't exist. They're very self-centered, but yet you want to speak for community. And or I do the work, but then you go back and you look at what their work is, and there's no work, or there's only work for them and their peers. That's not community leadership. That's not community involvement. Community involvement is the work that's done outside of your normal homogeneous group. That it has to be more than just those who walk and talk like you. And I think that's where we have to kind of do a little bit a better job of saying, no, this title can be empty right now because we don't have any qualified folks to run. Or no, we appreciate you applying, but we've seen your social media and we see how you like to do fake call outs for self-centered activities. No, we don't need you. No, it's okay because you have growing to do. And then hold those people accountable. And not saying that they can't be forgiven, but just at this given moment, no. And it'd be okay. And then folks have to hold the mirror to themselves and realize that's why they weren't selected. And I think that every person deserves an opportunity, absolutely. But I think that we all should do some self-evaluation before we step up and do a clean house of what we have to offer. No one is above, investigation. Investigate me all day. I'm sure I've done some crazy things in my life, but the heart has always been in the right place. And ever since I've taken this walk, it has always been a fight for folks who look like me. Always been a fight for my trans siblings. Always been a fight to fight for my leather my sisters. always been a fight to recognize the women who have paved the way, whether they were in leather or not. You know, I fell into leather because my mother was in a motorcycle club, and I love the smell and the empowerment that she got from that club in the 70s. I mean, so there's spaces, and so I've always fought that fight, and I continue to have that fight. And I think that we have to look at everyone who says, I want to run for a title, because you don't have to have a title to be a leader. You should come to that, you should have some embodiment. And it doesn't always have to be within this realm either. You could be a leader in your schoolhouse, you could be a leader at work. Those things are transferable. But if you have really none of that, and then you talk about community, and your only community workers, or I came up old guard, or I came up through this, that, and the third with this house or this family. Okay, cool, but what have you done outside of that? And what does that work look like? And if you can't give a valid answer as to why you're applying, it's okay to say, let's table this conversation until next year, and here's why.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your wisdom. I am very, very sure that I'm going to have you back. There's a lot more to be had. And I appreciate everything you said, especially in terms of being a title holder. Because, one thing being humble is so important, but I know I'm passionate. You're passionate. I might get passionate where I might, ruffle some feathers or get into it or something. And I am not above apologizing if my passion comes off wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a really big thing about being a leader, is knowing when I might look. If you think I should have handled something better than the way I did, please tell me. I will own it. I
Absolutely.
will apologize. And I think we need to, pride is what I'm getting at. We've got
Mm-hmm.
to not be so prideful to say I'm sorry, too prideful to say, you know what, I did XYZ and I should have done it this way. Like, so, no, I want people to know that as a title holder, too, you are not always right. And be aware of that and be humble and just remember where you started from. And no, there's no sense of putting people down to get to the top or stepping on people. So,
But
that's,
may I just add, I agree with you, but I also think that we, as those of us who stepped up and took on the role of titles, also need to give ourselves grace. I do agree with you. Where there are times where you can realize someone's perception of how you acted may have harmed them. But there's also times where how you acted protected yourself and your peace, and that's okay too. Because what I realized, especially the second go around, is that folks think that they are entitled to say and do however, and that's not always the case, because we can coexist, but doesn't mean that we have to break bread together. Especially when I realize that you're harmful. What I will never do is, because you may have a plethora of friends, it's not my job per se to bring you harm because you harm me. They may see something different in you than I, but what I will always do is protect my peace and protect those around me, and not give you access to me. So yes, I do agree with you that pride is very important, and the ability to be humble, but also allowing grace and recognizing the difference of the two. Because yes, when you are harming someone, it's okay to say, I'm sorry, I didn't see it from your viewpoint. And it's also okay to say, yes, I hear what you have to say, and I appreciate your words. But let's talk about why those decisions were made and what you brought to the table, and why I had to say, yeah, I'm not. Because I will tell you, I will love everyone and I will fight for everyone. But the moment that you bring harm, I don't give third opportunities, because that's how we continually become hurt. That's how we become jaded. And we have to now say, because we hold this title, there's 50 other people that we could benefit from, and not allow this one or two individuals to bring us down or make us fake and not be who we are. Because I will never change my value system just to get along with a community member, especially if that community member has that mask, and I've already identified the mask. but at the same time, I won't be harmful. As I think often too, because just because I don't like a person, I expect you not to like them. That's not fair. However, if you then say, wow, you were right, then we can then have a conversation and I can kind of enlighten you why. However, but if they're being harmful on a big scale, then yeah, I think we owe each other, especially as we talk about community leaders running for titles. But folks are scared to ask those questions because again, they don't want to know the answer. They already know it, but they don't want to know. And they also don't talk to marginalized folks. They don't talk to black and brown folks. They don't talk to our siblings with trans experience. They don't talk to our sisters in leather because we are often the folks who see it first. And we're so used to battling. You spoke about your experience in Louisiana. That shaped you to who you are and how you battle and face things. A lot of marginalized folks, we have fought so many different fights. So when we go into regular spaces, we overcome. We adapt to what it is because safety first, prolonging my life and how to get through. And so when we see someone doing some crazy stuff, we remove ourselves. We don't leave the space. We remove ourselves to like-minded folks, and we see everything happening. But producers and things are not coming to the marginalized community and say, "Hey, have you ever had an interaction with so and so?" Because again, as I said earlier, women and our siblings of trans experience mostly typically are able to tell you, yeah, that person rubbed me wrong, and here's why. Because the thing is, if they harm those who are most affected, they're gonna harm you and I. Those folks who have the least, they're gonna definitely harm you and I because they don't care about anything. And until we start listening to our siblings who are truly marginalized, the world can never be clear because those are the folks who are fighting for everybody. Those rights, their lived experiences, they want for themselves, but not just for themselves, but for everyone. And I think that's where so humble and pride is amazing, but the ability to listen and realize who to talk to, how to talk to. Because talk to a privileged person is only going to give you privileged answers. So I know I kind of went off on a tangent there.
Oh, thank you so much. No, that was beautiful. All right. Well, I thank you so much for being on the show, giving me your time. I will stay in touch with you obviously because I was
Oh
I'm
my gosh, it's
for
over.
our conversation. There's one thing you have to do before
Right.
you go. You got to close the show out. You ready? So when I count to three, you're going to say, if you're not throwing light, you're not acting right. You
If you're
ready?
not, this the practice round.
Go
If you're
ahead.
not throwing light, you're not acting right.
There you go.
Okay,
You ready?
I'm ready.
1, 2, 3.
If you not throwing light, you not acting right.
That was perfect.
I love you so much and thank you. Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much. All right, y'all. That has been another episode of Throwing Light. See y'all later.
See you later. Thank you.